Is there an alien invasion false flag agenda? Let's discuss, let's discuss both sides and see where we come out with. This is Jack. Welcome to Cosmic Road. I talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media, and let me know what you think in the comments below. While I wait for a couple of people to get in here, let me let my cat out for just a sec. Okay, I'm back. All right. Yeah, what do you think, guys? I saw the recent Stephen Greer interview where he was talking about, once again, about the alien invasion false flag agenda. And of course, his take on it is that there is going to be a false flag and that cattle mutilations and alien abductions are part of it, all sowing the seeds of fear in the public so that the beings can come forth and, or rather, the control group can come forth and take over the world as our saviors against this alien menace. So, what do you guys think? Is that what's going on? Let me know your thoughts. Yeah, Super Crazy Movie Geek says, show us the bodies, right? Yeah, I want to see some bodies. Absolutely. I want to see some live alien. Body sounds kind of gruesome. I want to see some live aliens. I want to see some Arcturians playing the banjo. John says, too early to come back later. I think Jack does a great job. Okay, well, maybe we'll come back later, John. Yeah. Peter says, no false flag stuff. Todd says, Greer is the biggest purveyor of falsehoods. Yeah, he really is. He really is. So let's go through a few points that I cooked up for this. Could there be a false flag alien invasion? Greer has said abductions and cattle mutilations are false flags staged to sow fear in preparation for this alien invasion. However, my rebuttal is, and I've just made a video about this, so check that out. I go into a little more detail. But the mutilations that he says are part of the false flag have been going on since at least 1606. Yeah, that's right. In the London area in 1606, there were a rash of sheep being mutilated. These weren't predators. These weren't poachers. The bodies were left. The fleece was left. The meat was left. It was just certain organs and incisions that were made, the typical sort of cattle mutilation, incisions, and organ removal that was done on these sheep. And that have also been done to, bison, elk, deer, cats and dogs, unfortunately, and other animals as well. But yeah, so this has been going on since 1606. And since 2001, there have been an estimated 3,500 cattle mutilations in South America. And in the recent cattle mutilations here in Texas that my MUFON group is investigating, or was investigating, the FBI came in and took over the investigation. So, from the local authorities, and they put a silence on everybody. Nobody can talk about it. And that's why the investigation is not going anywhere, at least not publicly, because the FBI has taken it over. Does that sound like someone that is trying to sow fear? If they wanted to spread fear from the cattle mutilation phenomenon, they would publicize it. They wouldn't tamp down on it. That makes no sense. Similarly with alien abductions, the alien abduction phenomenon is characterized by mind wipes. So if alien abductions were designed, allergies. Okay, so yeah, so if the alien the alien abductees are typically almost universally mind wiped so that they don't remember those events. So how could they possibly be designed to sow fear of the aliens, or if they are prevented from remembering these events? Does that make any sense at all? No, of course not. Also, it's way too vast and wide-reaching to be, the control group or whatever you want to call them, the powers that be that are doing this. According to the Roper poll conducted by John Mack Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs in the 90s, it showed 2% of the world population were contactees or abductees. David Jacobs has since said they actually had to whittle that number down to get it to a more palatable number. Now, I mean, 2% of the world population is huge, but he says the real number is closer to 5%. So just imagine that. That means hundreds of millions of people worldwide being abducted. And most of these abductions are lifelong. They are, start when they are children. Gary Nolan, I'm positive that he's a contactee because he remembers a being in his bedroom putting him to sleep when he was a wee child. So, and that is very common among abductees. They are taken when they are little, and they are continuously taken throughout the course of their lives. Sometimes it stops at a certain point, but yeah. So, and they have ongoing relationships with the beings that are taking them. They know their names. They know their histories. They have when these memories are recovered, they have all these complex relationships with these beings. And often these contacts will start off very negative. Whitley Strieber, whose, conscious contacts began, or whose known contacts began when he was an adult, started off very negative. He's used the R word in terms of personal violation to describe his early experience. And that's totally what it seems to be. They were using an instrument to simulate his prostate so they could, retrieve genetic tissue to get him stimulated. Was that a nice thing for them to do? No, that was terrible. That was a terrible thing. Very traumatic for him and many other people. However, he has gone on to have this really complex and interesting relationship with the phenomenon. And overall, he is extremely positive about it. They gave him an implant that has allowed him to communicate with his late wife. I mean, his wife, she's died. And they have gone on to have a relationship with each other from beyond the veil, from across the veil. They even wrote a book together. The beings have helped him have out-of-body experiences. They've given him, they've allowed him to see an alternate reality, many other things. And he has a very positive view of the phenomenon, even though his original experiences were very negative, which is very common. According to the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, 80% of abductees, repeat abductees, have a favorable impression of the abduction experience and wish it to continue. So that right there refutes Greer's claims that the abductions could be designed to sow fear, because 80% of repeat contactees think it's a positive thing. It did not sow fear. So first of all, their minds are wiped. So if this was designed to sow fear, that would make sense, because they would be encouraged to remember these traumatic events if that was the case. And B, when they do recover these memories, they are very positive. Their overall impression is very positive. So yeah, and also, of course, there's the scope of this. Hundreds of millions of people is impossible for the control group. I mean, the control group is robust and vast, and their resources are amazing. I think they're interacting with the beings. I think the evidence shows that very clearly. So yeah, they are assisting in abductions. They totally are. But the abductions are not designed to sow fear. They are to accomplish a purpose. And a big part of that purpose is the hybridization program. Why are people being made hybrids? Or why are people being, why is genetic tissue being retrieved from people to create hybrids? Well, that's a great question. And there is we'll get into that. We'll get into that. But so I've just refuted Stephen Greer's main two claims that cattle mutilations and alien abductions are false flags designed to sow fear, to pave the way for this mythical, or, I don't want to say mythical. I mean, who knows? And we'll get into that, the pros and cons of a false flag alien abduction. But those 2 points, that cattle mutilations and alien abductions are part of this false flag, are clearly BS. Greer is just peddling disinformation as usual, which is so frustrating about Greer, because he does have some good qualities. He popularizing CE5, getting witnesses to come forward, telling their stories, briefing presidents on the UFO issue. He's done some good stuff, but it's a shame that he just spreads lies and disinformation and that so many people believe him. And furthermore, that he goes on to attack people like Lou Elizondo and, spread toxicity and bile among the UFO community. It's just a shame. It's just a shame. But could there be an alien false flag agenda independent of Greer's assertions of mutilations and abductions? Sure. Yeah. The control group, they're not necessarily our friend. I mean, they're pretty diabolical, aren't they? I mean, they're pretty brutal. They've been brutally suppressing this for a long time, probably murdering many people, intimidating many others into silence, complicit in abductions, brainwashing the American public and by extension the world for 80 years. So what the heck? That's not real friendly, right? That's not real friendly. So they are probably motivated by selfish desires, like the X-Files, the Smoking Man and those guys, the cadre of FBI, higher ups that were working with beings for their own personal gain. There could well be something like that. And I don't discount the idea that they could have a benevolent purpose. I mean, they've done some shady stuff, but, looking at other examples like in World War II, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, those were objectively terrible acts that killed hundreds of thousands of people. And yet it prevented a land war, an invasion of Japan that would have probably killed millions of people and reduced Japan to rubble. So, those bombs were awful, but they saved many lives, most likely, many, many lives. So you can say that doing something dark and bad and evil may actually have a good net outcome. So could the control group, be positioning themselves for a good net outcome, or us for a good net outcome? It is theoretically possible. Theoretically possible. I'm not seeing that from anything the control group has ever done or that we know they've done. They, like Richard Dolan says, they are the breakaway civilization. They exist separately, independently. They've got their own thing going. They're riding around in UFOs, working with beings. God knows what they're doing. God knows what they're doing. And brutally suppressing this stuff. But could they stage a false flag alien invasion? Well, I mean, they are probably diabolical enough to conceive it and to want to do it. They have the technology, as I've reported on many times. We seem to have had our own UFO since the late 50s or 60s. Multiple people, insiders, have said that, including, Lockheed Martin Skunk Works engineers, another engineer that worked at Area 51. What's his name? Bill Udoff? No, is that his name? And I made a video on it, so you can go check that out. And various other insiders have said, yeah, we were working with the beings and they were helping us develop this technology to fly our own UFOs. So we have the technology, or the control group has the technology to carry out a false flag alien invasion. They totally do. But if we've had this technology since the 50s or 60s, why haven't they done it? Why have they waited, 50, 60 years, whatever, to do this, right? Does that make any sense? 40, 50 years. Well, why have they waited that long to carry out this false flag alien invasion if they've had the means and the will and the mindset, the diabolical mindset to actually do this? I don't know. Maybe they're waiting for some trigger, right? Maybe the time hasn't come yet. They were waiting for something to happen or for their power to be consolidated or something. I don't know, guys. Well, what do you think? What do you think? And then we'll get into my next, I'll go on from there, but I want to know what you guys think. And by the way, if you're just joining us, this is Jack with Cosmic Road talking about false flag alien abductions or invasion, rather. And I've already got a great group here. And yeah, please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. Let me know what you're thinking in the chat. If you want to support live streams like this or the channel in general, please consider leaving a super chat. That motivates me to keep going and to do more of these. So that would be appreciated. So, all right, let me see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Yeah, Peter says, I always said Greer is problematic. He really is, because he's got some good qualities and he's done some good stuff. I would love it if he were an overall force of good in the UFO community, but he's not. And that's the. I mean, I would love it if he were only bad. If I could just completely ignore him, that'd be wonderful. If I could just never listen to another word he says. But there are, he's done so much good stuff that I think he's worth paying attention to. I made several videos about the witnesses that he brought forward a couple of weeks ago in the press conference, and some really good stuff there that I'm going to carry with me. I think that adds to the conversation. Seeing, weapons and potentially humans loaded aboard a human-flown UFO in Indonesia. Stuff like that. The control group, are they running? Are they engaging in human trafficking? Are they running guns or drugs, as some people have said, including Lance Corporal Wygant, famous from the Brazil case. One of the Brazil cases. Brazil's a hot spot. I'm probably going to do another video about a UFO battle that occurred in Brazil. There's video of it. A lot of witnesses, that occurred in I think 2000 or something like that. I mean, excuse me, 2020. And what's it called? Mages, Brazil. Nuts. And then of course there's Virginia, and there's Colares. Brazil's a hot spot, and the control group is heavily involved in whatever's going on in Brazil. I mean, something happens, our guys show up like that. It's nuts. Erwin Fletcher says a lot of things are on the table, but I would think the false flag option is the least credible, in my opinion. Yeah, I think so too. I think so. I mean, the control group, they seem to have all the power already. I mean, why do they need to take over? I mean, really? But I everything's on the table, I guess. I mean, if it happens, I don't want to be caught flat-footed. Troy says, I think Greer's logic is motivated by either extremely negative interactions with the control group or befriending witnesses who have such views and joining a groupthink or cult type opinion. Yeah, I totally agree. He has formed his own cult. I mean, Greer has a lot of, and every time I make an anti-Greer video, I get a lot of people, chiming in support of Greer and attacking me. And that's, one reason I wanted to make this video today is because when I made that video earlier today, I was surprised at how many people were supporting Greer and the false flag agenda. And, there may or may not be a false flag invasion at some point, but saying that abductions and mutilations are part of that are clearly false. And Greer is lying, or he is delusional. And when I say lying, I think it's very possible that he might be deliberately spreading misinformation on behalf of the beings that he serves, whether wittingly or unwittingly. I think it's highly likely that he is a hybrid and carrying out a mission here on Earth. But, I could be wrong. But that would explain his affinity with the phenomenon and why he's able to take people out on CE5 sessions and have such amazing interactions. I mean, if you see his movies like Unacknowledged and one other one, I think that shows a lot of the interactions that people are having, these phantasmal beings show up that are, other dimensional or what have you. and kind of ghostly. It's just really amazing. Of course, then if some flares drop over the ocean, he's going to take credit for it. but he does seem to have genuine interactions with his C5 and a genuine affinity with it and an ability to summon the phenomenon. So it's interesting. And Greer is an interesting cat, and I don't discount the possibility that he has a direct line to the beings and that he may be carrying out their will. An alien apologist who is spreading out disinformation on their behalf, saying that they would never do anything wrong. And, as I've said many times, I have an overall positive view of the phenomenon. In fact, I got attacked earlier today about that. People saying, how can you defend abductions and stuff? And we can totally get into that. I'm not defending abductions. It is interesting to note that according to the Edgar Mitchell Foundation, 80% of repeat contactees do have positive views of their abductions and a favorable view of their interactions overall. So that is really interesting. But it does sound scary and alarming. Yeah, PreDeath Lobby says we live in a very convoluted science fiction movie. Yeah, yeah, they do. Let's see. David says Greer misquotes people constantly. I met him once. He does. After listening to his speech that he claimed he needed about 1 billion more to achieve his goal of putting out and helping free energy inventors. I need $1 billion too. I could do a lot with $1 billion. I could probably crack free energy. Sure, give me $1 billion. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think we could all use $1 billion. Good idea. And then there was one point when he said that he was offered $2 billion by some high up government official to shut up about all this. I mean, he's full of BS. He really is. So Tristan says, was there a lady who studied abductees that claimed that there was an invasion coming? I forget her name. What happened to her? Is she still saying it? Sorry for the vagueness. Well, thank you, Tristan. I appreciate that. I don't know. There's been a couple of ladies that, are real prominent who have studied abductees and who have hypnotically regressed thousands of people. I'm thinking of Dolores Cannon and Barbara Lamb specifically, and there are others as well. But those are the two big ones I'm familiar with. And it's interesting that both of those ladies are extremely positive on the phenomenon and of the abduction, phenomenon overall. And that the abductions are here to help people and upgrade people. And, there's all sorts of stories about the beings teaching people how to read their auras and giving them or unlocking psychic abilities with them, teaching them hands-on healing. Chris Bledsoe, one of my favorite experiencers ever, is now able to heal people after his experiences and has healed and saved lives. And it's just amazing what the beings are capable of and what they can unlock within us. So many people do have very positive experiences, although often they will start very negatively and very, very traumatically and scary. And then they will go on to have these complicated relationships with the beings and learn stuff. Sometimes really good stuff, sometimes stuff that's alarming, and we'll get into that. But yeah, if you can remember what the lady is, Tristan, or some more details about her, I'll try to remember what I can from her if I've studied her. I've studied a lot of those guys and ladies. Yeah, I love Dolores Cannon and Barbara Lamb. It's really interesting because I talk about the silos of information a lot and how there are these different camps and different information coming from these different camps. If you study Dolores Cannon and Barbara Lamb, you get this one silo of information with this very positive view of the abduction phenomenon. If you study David Jacobs, Bud Hopkins, and John Mack, you tend to get a very negative view, especially Bud Hopkins and David Jacobs. John Mack was somewhere in the middle. And, but yeah, I mean, David Jacobs is very worried about the hybridization project and the hybrids coming here and infiltrating society and taking over. And yeah, in fact, let's just get into that. We'll get into that. Okay. So yeah, so we were talking about the false flag alien invasion. Well, okay. So there's some different scenarios, right? We've gone over, could the control group stage a false flag alien invasion? Sure, they could. They totally could. They've got the means. They've got the diabolicalness. You could argue they have the motive because they want power. And maybe they want like a one world government so they can like control everybody. Totally possible. Totally possible. But if they've had this technology since the 50s or 60s, why haven't they done it? Maybe they don't need to. Maybe they've already got all the power. Or they are a rogue breakaway civilization, as Richard Dolan says. They don't care what the rest of the world is doing. They're up in space having adventures, or underground in their deep underground bases, having their own civilization, having coffee with the Andromedans or whatever. They may not care what we do. They may not care what the mainstream society does. However, there is an alternate scenario. So let's talk about David Jacobs again, and one of my favorite UFO researchers, and also who has regressed thousands of contactees, and sometimes many, many times. I think he said that some of his people he's regressed hundreds of times. So, and his information, a lot of his people talk about the shift, or rather, the beings are talking about the shift, and we're getting this information from the contactees. And the shift is similar but opposite to what Dolores Cannon and Barbara Lamb talk about. They talk about the ascension, right? The beings are here to facilitate the ascension of man and of Gaia into the fifth dimension or the fourth density, whatever paradigm you prefer. And it's a very positive thing. It's the age of Aquarius. We're going up, right? It's very similar to the rapture. It's interesting. Okay? Some people will be left behind. If you have a high vibration, etc., you will be raised up. And I really gravitate to and resonate with that, because my experience with the phenomenon, which admittedly is mainly with what I call the greater phenomenon. I have one or two UFO experiences, but mainly my experiences are more metaphysical in nature. And that seems to be the bulk of the phenomenon from what I'm seeing. And prominent experiencers like Peter Maxwell Slattery have said only the bottom 10% of the phenomenon is nuts and bolts UFO stuff. By far, is the greater phenomenon. The bulk of it is more metaphysical or other dimensional, consciousness-based, spiritual, paranormal, whatever you want to call it. And or any and all of the above. But anyway, but yeah, getting back to David Jacobs, don't want to lose my focus. He has a totally different take. It's not benevolent. The beings are here to facilitate not the ascension, but the shift. And his information is that the beings themselves might stage a fake apocalypse. Not the control group. It's not a false flag by the control group, alien invasion. It's actually the beings that are going to stage a fake apocalypse, then save us from it. Okay, so what's the evidence of that? Well, he has many, many contactees that he's regressed that, they're not taught to read their auras or to heal. They are trained in things like crowd control. Crowd control for an apocalyptic event. There's people panicking in the streets, and they are trained to pacify them and to herd them aboard waiting UFOs. That is what his people are reporting to him in large numbers. Like I said, he's regressed thousands of people. And so the UFOs are going to take these people aboard and then lift off, taking them somewhere, saving them, hopefully not for the dinner table, right? But I don't think so. I think if the beings wanted to eat us, they would just come down and eat us. They don't need any tricks. They don't need elaborate stagings over decades to come down and eat us. So, or even enslave us. So I think it's something more complicated than that. I don't know what it is, though. The abductees didn't know. The beings didn't tell them. Can you trust anything the beings say? No, you can't, unfortunately. Life would be so much easier if A, you could ignore Stephen Greer, and B, if you could trust what the beings say. But they say a lot of things that don't all mesh with each other. In fact, they don't typically mesh with each other. They conflict with each other a lot. And but often they are furthering the same narratives. And that is the interesting point to me because I study what they say. I made a great study of what the beings say. It's, you know, the best glimpse I can get beyond that particular veil. And they, for example, they give many different accounts of their origin story and why they're here and how they came to be and why they abduct people, what it's all about. And, you know, they say many different things. They have like 6 different narratives that I've come across to explain all that. You know, they're from the past, they're from the future, they're from an alternate reality. You know, they've blended too much with AI and they need us because we're related somehow and they need to correct their genes. They're from the future and they genetically modify themselves too much and they're coming back into the past again to save their DNA. You know, they're from the past and they're a dying race and they're here to save their DNA. So those can't all be true. But they all accomplish the same narrative. They all get across the same narrative. They are a weak, dying race, and they need us. So that is what they want us to believe, right? They are helpless. We have nothing to fear from them, and that they need us. So they're not going to wipe us out. You know, to console us. They're not going to wipe us out because they need us. We're important to them. And they are no threat to us because they're weak and they're dying. Feel sorry for these little gray guys because they're dying. You know, clearly not all those stories can be true. So, but you can see the narrative they're trying to get across and why they may be advancing that narrative. And it may be for a completely benevolent reason. I mean, they may just want to console people. The truth may be much more complicated. Maybe they are extremely powerful. They seem to be very extremely powerful, and etc. So, you know, but they do want people to feel better about it, potentially. That's my take on it. But yeah, so why are David Jacob and Bud Hopkins patients and clients, when they are regressed, why do they talk about being trained in things like crowd control to herd people aboard a UFO and in the event of an apocalypse, a likely staged apocalypse? So, and that's called the shift. They all call it the shift. So maybe there's actually going to be an apocalypse. Maybe it's not manipulative. Maybe it's benevolent. Maybe the beings are worried that there's going to be asteroid strike or nuclear war or some other thing, and they are actually here to help us. And that's what the hybrids are doing. They're blending with society and everything, and you know, and they're going to help the contactees who have been trained in this to save, you know, humanity, or some of us, in the event of an apocalyptic event. What do you guys think? Are they doing it for benevolent reasons or not? And yeah, so yeah, let me know your thoughts, guys. And if you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road talking about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. And if you want to support Cosmic Road and encourage this live stream and further live streams, please consider leaving a super chat. That would be very helpful and very appreciated, and it will keep me motivated to keep making these. But yeah, let me read what you guys are saying. Let's see. Yeah, you guys have some great comments here. Thank you guys. You guys are awesome. Todd says, studios I've seen that also about Carter. Is that Jimmy Carter? Yeah. I actually talked about that the other day. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I just did a video about that. It was part of a video that I did with some information that has come out about that incident where Jimmy Carter briefed about the UFO reality, and he burst into tears and he cries. He's just very overcome and freaked out, possibly. And the question has always been, why? Why was he so unnerved and freaked out by this? And the answer, according to an insider, and I talked about this just the other day, and I read the letter that he wrote, is that he was told that the UFO, the beings have manipulated us since forever. They may have created us, and they have created all religions to control us, but for, I think it was some sort of positive way. It was actually they were controlling us I mean, they're using religion for some benevolent reason. I go into the detail in that video just a few days ago. I don't know if that was the subject line in the video. It may have been a part of a roundup or something. But yeah, I talked about that, and I read the letter from the insider, and that seems, if that's true, then that is why Jimmy Carter freaked out when he heard about that. Now, where did he get that information from? Is it the control group telling him that? Is it, somebody like Stephen Greer telling him that? Because Stephen Greer has briefed several presidents. I don't think it's Jimmy Carter, but yeah. So, yeah, I don't know where Jimmy Carter got that information. I'm not even saying it's wrong, but you have to look at the source for these things. Stephen Greer says something that's a source you may want to steer clear of. But if it's coming from someone else, but even then, even good sources will have very different information. Like, the silos of information that I talk about all the time. I think that's very important. The distinction between the Barbara Lamb and Dolores Cannon camp and the David Jacobs Bud Hopkins camp. They're both very credible researchers that have hypnotized and regressed thousands of people each, but they get very different information. Why? Why are they getting such different information? So I think a lot of credible researchers that may even, some of them may even have direct pipeline to the beings, are getting different information. You can't, yeah. And a lot of these people are getting their information from people that are interacting with the beings, or know people who are interacting with the control group, or what have you. And a lot of false narratives seem to get spread, or I should say, a lot of narratives get spread. And some of them are probably true. Some of them are not. It's hard to tell. You can only, I try to just judge by the evidence I see. And I don't have any particular theories or anything. I guess I probably do, but I try to look at the evidence as it is, and not, you got to look at the source. Let's leave it at that. Yeah. So yeah. Todd says, I've seen that about Carter. He was a very religious Southerner, so I would imagine that if part about religion being a charade is true, he would not handle that well. Yeah, totally. Great Troll says, could be as simple as humans are not the top dogs, or as serious as something that would make us. Yeah, I mean, that's what Lou Elizondo said. It's going to be a somber day when the world finds out about this. We're going to find out we're not the top of the totem pole. And that's going to be, really alarming for a lot of people. I mean, it's alarming. I mean, if we were the masters of our own fate and we were the most powerful dog around, that would be a lot more comforting than the idea that we might not be, or the reality that we are not. And yeah, I mean, it is, yeah. I mean, when I first got into UFOs in 2017, and I realized that, I went through a dark night of the soul. I was freaked out for a while. I was freaked out until I came to the Skinwalker Ranch stuff. I avoided Skinwalker Ranch, studying that for a long time, and then I did, and I'm so glad I did. Because then I came to the woo-woo stuff, the supernatural, the paranormal, the metaphysical, and that the Pentagon was studying the paranormal at Skinwalker Ranch. And at that time, I was an atheist. I didn't believe in the paranormal. And but when I realized the Pentagon was spending taxpayer money to study, poltergeist and werewolves and whatever, now I think I have a different interpretation of all that. At Skinwalker Ranch. And anyway, that encouraged me to research the paranormal and the spiritual, and to start ghost hunting. And then I began to experience stuff. And then I had my own experiences. I learned Reiki. And so once I got into all the metaphysical stuff and realized the confluence of the metaphysical and the spiritual with the UFO reality, that made me feel a lot better about it. That made me feel so much better about it. And there's a huge overlap between metaphysical or spiritual and UFOs. 1/3 of all alien abductees are near-death experiencers, people who have died, been to the other side, and come back. And there's a whole bunch of other I've talked about many times before about the confluence between the spiritual and the alien presence. And yeah. Todd is talking about the somber moment. Yeah. Anyway, so I hope that Jimmy Carter got there in his research, or I hope somebody clued him in on that religions may or may not be manipulated. Who knows? But there is a fundamental truth to the spiritual reality, and that it is tied in with the UFO reality. So it's not all alarming and scary, and but there are some scary stuff to it. There's some scary aspects to it. The phenomenon may be largely positive. I think it is, but there's some negative aspects to it. There are some good actors and some bad actors involved in all of this. And yeah, I got flack on the channel earlier today for saying I had a positive view of the phenomenon, but I do. Yeah, Todd says, I just hope it's nothing too sinister that's being held from us. Yeah. I hope so too. Rad Music Studio says, I agree. I'm good with the religion aspect or lack thereof. However, if we are just a bunch of nothing and things that were created as an experiment that serves no other purpose, is awful. Yeah, that would be awful. That would be terrible. And if you don't get into the spiritual aspect of it, I think it is very scary. So I think that is important, and that's one of the reasons I harp on that on the channel, because I think that is so important to understanding the phenomenon, and also to having an overall being okay with it, being understanding it and being okay with it. So I think that's very important. But yeah, Todd says, yeah, okay. I got Devil Kayuza says, no way, they will never disclose the truth. Man. Yeah, that's Ross Coulthart was saying earlier. I think it was on the interview with Kurt Jamongol. Was that yesterday? Theories of Everything. Love that channel. And Ross was saying he doesn't think, he's very excited about everything that's going on, but he doesn't think it's leading to an official disclosure of any sort. That's kind of disheartening for him to hear him say that. I think that, unfortunately, very unfortunately, I grit my teeth to say it, but I think that's where Stephen Greer is so helpful. I think that CE5 is popularizing. Because that's what he did, right? He popularized CE5, human initiated contact with the phenomenon. And I think that may be our best way forward. We don't need the government. I made a video a few months ago saying that Stephen Greer is the Martin Luther of ufology. There was the Catholic model where you had to go through the priest, or in this analogy, the government, to get to the truth. But the Protestant model, you have a direct personal relationship with the beyond. And I think that was what Stephen Greer has popularized. He even made the app for it, making a buck off that, I bet. So, that's why you can't discount him, unfortunately. Damn it. But yeah, I think that's very, very important. I think that could be the key to everything, is human-initiated contact with the phenomenon, but do it safely. If you can, have somebody there with you that has sensitivities and abilities, whether that's an energy worker or a psychic or a medium, or a contactee that maybe a conscious contactee. And that may sound woo woo to some of you, but I love the woo, and that is where the stuff goes. So and they can help you have a positive experience, and also to invoke positive beings. Very important. So anyway. Gray Troll says, regardless of religion, do you believe in the soul and reincarnation? We are being experiment has very different consequences depending on what happens after we die. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, totally, man. Totally. I hate the idea of reincarnation. I do not like reincarnation. I want to be Jack. I don't want to be anybody else. Being forced to go through reincarnation to become someone or something else. I mean, that's death, in my opinion. Your death, your identity is your death. I don't want to be recycled. However, I've made a great study of near-death experiences, And people that are on the other side say that reincarnation is a thing, but it's optional. It's totally optional. We choose to come back. And when we're on the other side, we have a very different perspective on all this. Maybe we merge with our higher self or something, and we have a very, very different view on all of this stuff. And, they give various reasons, they give different reasons why we come back, why we incarnate into this world. Or other worlds, because they say that we incarnate in other worlds as well, and that all of us have lived lives as aliens and other beings. I don't have any of those experiences, so I don't know. I don't know. I no conscious experiences, but yeah. So I'm consoled by that it's voluntary. So I don't know if that'll console you guys, but it makes me feel better. I can't see it though. I mean, why would you ever come back? I mean, you could be gallivanting around on the astral plane, having adventures with angels or whatever, maybe they're hot too. So well, yeah, why would you come back? Why would you come back? But people do, apparently. Seven Space Alpha says ascension, going to space, but also heightening other senses to perceive more to what already exists in dimensional space. Dimensions exist all at once. It's not the spoon that bends. It is you, Neo. Yeah. I like that. I like that. I can't talk about that. I'm not, can't go there. Can't go there. No, unfortunately. Grateful says to serve mankind. Yeah, right. Great Twilight Zone episode. Hopefully fictional. Hopefully fictional. Space Alpha says magnetic pole shift. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Does that have any relevance on what's going on? Is that an apocalyptic event that the beings could be here to help save us from? Is that your idea? I mean, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. The poles seem to be shifting right now, so that would make perfect sense. That could be the event they're here to help with. Or there's that asteroid. Some religious people call it wormwood, that is going to come between the Earth and the Moon in a few years, and that is a planet killer if it were to hit us. And and there's all sorts of apocalyptic modalities. I made a video about that, maybe a year ago, talking about various apocalyptic modalities, some of which are science-based, like that asteroid, and some are, religious or metaphysical based, or, it's coming from, psychics and, new age kind of information, whatever. Anyway, but there are a range of apocalyptic modalities that all coincide in the next few years. It's all like 2026 to 2032 or something. There's this window that, I don't know. I'm not saying to get a bunker, but it's heads up, stay frosty during those years. Of course, the people, that are, Andy Barber Lamb, Dolores Cannon camp, the more new age mystical camp, believe that, that may be the time of the ascension, the time when the Earth moves into the fifth dimension or the fourth density, and humans, those who are of a sufficient high vibration, will go into that higher dimension, that higher place. Our bodies will be lighter. We'll live much longer. We'll have much less care and worries and troubles. We'll have abilities. It'll be just wonderful. It'll be, paradise on earth, like literally. Not all problems will go away. It'll still be humans, but we'll be vibrating high, and it'll just be a wonderful, magical paradise. That is what those people believe. I hope that's true. I like that. I resonate with that. Let's make that happen. I do believe in manifesting reality. I think that's probably a thing. So let's manifest that, guys. Let's vibrate high. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive. Don't get scared. Don't get alarmed. There's some great researchers out there, David Icke and stuff, but they're going to take you to a negative place. are going to take you to a negative place. So, I'm not saying there's not some funky bad stuff with some beings going on. But there's also some really wonderful, glorious things. And I would encourage people to focus on that so that you can vibrate high and yeah, you get me. You get me. Let's see. Great Troll says try astral projection or lucid dreams. I've only had limited experiences, but I'm inclined to believe in reincarnation. Reincarnation seems to be a thing according to the evidence that I've seen. It does seem to be optional, like I said. Astral projection, that is something I've been trying to do in my own lazy, haphazard way. And lucid dreams is also something that I've been trying to do. I even bought a gizmo over there, my soda device that I hook up to my ears, and it's supposed to align the hemispheres of my brain. And I'm supposed to use that like for 10 minutes before I go to bed every day. And it's supposed to enable me to have lucid dreams. I used it for several months every day religiously, and it didn't produce any lucid dreams. So I've kind of given up on that. But I would love to have lucid dreams. I would love to have an out of body experience. I did have a Kundalini awakening, which I'm real happy about. However, it was granted to me. I don't feel like I earned that. I was given this gift, and it was amazing. It was amazing. But it's not like I sat on a mountain for 20 years and achieving, the inner peace to achieve that. Let's see. PreDeath Lobby says they don't care about us. That's what's sobering. Well, I go both ways on that, right? Because, like Whitley Strieber, the most famous abductee, arguably. And his case is corroborated by multiple people who have seen parts of his abduction experiences. And so it's a very solid case. There's even a surgeon that did the surgery on his implant. And apparently there's like a video where you can kind of see it move. So his experiences started off very negatively. And the beings, you're right, they didn't seem to have any regard for him at all. He calls it a rape. It was a probe or whatever going up there to stimulate his prostate so that he could be aroused, so they could take this genetic tissue, because that's all they cared about was the hybridization project. They didn't care about his feelings or his trauma. However, he went on to have this ongoing relationship with these guys over many, many years, and he's written many books about it. And he has a very positive view of it overall. And that's what many, many experiencers report. So I get you. I hear you. They have a lousy bedside manner. The little grays seem like they're basically robots or automatons. According to the autopsy that was done by the Roswell guys, as reported by Colonel Philip J. Corso, they're biological robots essentially. Their whole bodies are designed to interface with the ship. It's nuts. It's nuts. Their brains are electromagnetically aligned. It's nuts. Anyway, so maybe those guys are like the unfriendly, uncaring, individuals that people have these bad experiences with. But then there's the other beings that people have good experiences with. A lot of people have very positive experiences, for example, with the taller grays or the mantis beings. Some of them even have good experiences with the short grays, and some of them know them by names and have ongoing relationship with them. There seems to be a whole bunch of subspecies of the grays, and not just of grays, but gray type entities. So it's interesting. Like the beings at Roswell, I don't know if they were grays. They were similar to grays. They could have been a subspecies of gray or just a similar looking race of being. Anyway, let's see. Todd says, "Great Troll. I do see your point about how an afterlife, when exists, could be very relevant if we are indeed some non-human intelligence's creation experiment." Yeah, totally, man. Totally. I would love to know how the metaphysical and the presence of our souls plays a part in this overall picture. Some experiencers say that the grays are very intrigued by our souls, and they do experiments. Some of their experiments are designed to, test our souls, or to examine our souls. So yeah, let's see. Yeah, so yeah, it's interesting. I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I believe those experiencers who report that, but if they're getting that information from the beings, can you trust that? Yeah, let's see. Yeah, and if you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road. Please hit like, please subscribe, share in social media, talking about the possibility of a false flag alien invasion as popularized by people like Stephen Greer. But, and please, if you want to encourage me to make more live streams like this, please consider leaving a super chat. That would be enormously helpful. It keeps the channel going, and it keeps live streams like this going. So I really appreciate your support, and thank you very much. And PayPal as well. There's a PayPal link below as well, and I appreciate those of you who have sent me PayPals. It's really appreciated. I had somewhere where I was going where I lost myself. Where was I? Where was I in the comments? Talking about afterlives. And well, let's just go to the next comment. Maybe it'll come back. Hey, Bearded Jedi, what's up? Space Alpha says, in regards to multiple stories, I think they receive the information but translate it internally differently. They don't hear the messages. The messages are implanted. Yeah, no, absolutely. The beings almost universally communicate telepathically. And sometimes, they'll hear the word. Sometimes it'll just be a knowing. They'll transmit the gist of the information to somebody, and they'll just have a knowing of what the being wanted to impart. It's really interesting. It's amazing. And sometimes they'll teach people how to do that, and they can do it when they get off the ship. Really interesting. Really interesting. And but occasionally the beings will speak with their mouths. You don't get those stories often, but you do get those stories that the beings, some of them, do have the ability to speak, and they can even speak in English, or at least that's what people perceive. I mean, these beings do have the ability to manipulate people's minds, and sometimes they'll be saying a screen memory instead of an actual thing. And so you never know when people are in the presence of the beings and having these encounters, what's real and what's not. Some of these encounters are very trippy, and maybe the reality is just very trippy. Maybe some of it is designed, they're only seeing what they can handle, but it's very complicated. You never know quite what's going on. So Space Alpha says, so they get mixed in with thought and imagination, a common problem with using psychic ability. Yeah, totally. Unknown, if there was something going on at Skinwalker Ranch, I don't believe the government would have let anyone near it. Yeah, well, okay, so to break that down, you are 100% right, I think. If it was a government project, yes. If it was if it was a deep underground military base there, for sure, it would not be in private hands. 100%. So whatever's going on there is not a government project in that sense. The government has studied it. The government is heavily interested in it. As soon as a UFO shows up, a black helicopter shows up. Not always, but repeatedly. If you watch The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, you'll see that repeatedly throughout the series. There'll be a UFO, immediately a black helicopter will show up. The Attorney General of the state actually was really motivated by one of those encounters or experiences to find out where one of these black helicopters came from. And he traced it to a nearby military base. So how did that military base know when the UFO was going to be there? Because it showed up instantly, right after the UFO. So, they didn't have to wait 15 minutes or whatever for it to show up. They knew when the UFO was going to be there, which goes along with many, many other stories. So, what's the deal? Did the beings that the control group is working with them clue them in that this was happening? Hey, there's going to be an event. You need to get over there because something could go wrong. Are they trying to scare off the UFOs? Is that why the black helicopters show up? Are they there to, party with them? Or are they there just to chronicle events? What is the involvement? I don't know. I don't know, but that is a great point. That is a terrific point. The government is involved in the sense that they are interested in it, and they clearly have some presence there and involvement there. But it is not, Skinwalker Ranch is not a government facility or project. Very good point. Very good point. Hey, aloha from Hawaii. Hi, George. Always wanted to visit Hawaii. Yeah. Aloha. Yeah. I want to wear a lei. I think leis are cool. Of course, locals probably don't even wear leis. They probably think that's a tourist thing, but I don't know. Let me know. Do you wear a lei, or is that just like a festival thing? I don't know. It's pretty cool. I have a friend that wears Hawaiian t-shirts all the time. I hope that's not cultural appropriation. Richard says, there's literally no way of running this thread down for anyone else, but I know what I know. Okay. I don't know what you're alluding to, but yeah, I mean, there's things that I know that yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting. You know what you know. Space Alpha says, I think they were doing a project similar to the Manhattan Project, the ranch, when it was a base temporarily. Okay. It's interesting. Yeah, we don't know what happened in the Bigelow years. That stuff is still classified, and there may still be, on the show, you'll see that sometimes they're trying to figure out what happened in the Bigelow era and dealing with the consequences potentially of things that did happen during that era, like that weird lines underground where that weird soil from the mesa was laid out in like a grid. And they were theorizing that maybe the Bigelow people did that, or maybe the beings did that, but it seemed to be possibly either to mark that particular spot or else as some sort of functional apparatus, some sort of circuit or something. Yeah, if you have any ideas what that was, if you've seen that episode, really, really intriguing. Oh, hey, Jim, how's it going? He says, have you watched the nearly 2-hour lost taped interview with Betty Hill? Very eye-opening. No, I don't. I mean, I've seen interviews with Betty Hill. I don't know about the 2-hour lost interview. If you have time, maybe you can share some of what she said. It's a fantastic case. Super interesting. The being showed her a star map. Just a great case. A great case. David says, Jim Baker of ufology. Greer? Yeah, pretty much. Super Crazy Movie Geek says, how soon from now do you think the government will actually show us an NHI, non-human intelligence, either dead or alive? Soon? Never? Man, I wish I knew, man. I wish I knew. I don't get the impression they're going to do it willingly. However, now that David Grush has come forward and naming names of the programs that are doing reverse engineering and UFO crashes, even locations and the names of individuals involved in this. And now that certain members of Congress, like on the Gang of Eight, have gotten ticked off that all this has been kept secret from Congress, and they seem to be actively trying to root it out. Well, they've known about it for 2 years. It's not rooted out. They didn't disclose this to the public until David Grush came forward publicly. Tim Burchett has said people in Congress on both sides of the aisle are compromised on this. So I would love to believe that Congress is going to serve the American public on this and the people of the world by coming forward with the truth of what our reality is. I mean, this is kind of fundamental to the nature of reality kind of stuff. I mean, in a very literal sense of, we're talking the metaphysics involved. But just on a very practical level, if there's beings here taking people or manipulating our genes or whatever they're doing, mutilating our animals, we should know, and we should know why. And, some accounting probably should be made. And maybe that's why they don't want to reveal it. Well, yeah, at this moment, I'm really on the fence about whether Congress is going to sincerely and actively investigate this. We'll see. The new language seems to funnel everything through Arrow. Ross Coulthart was making that point on the Theories of Everything with Kurt Jemongel, that David Grush had the liberty of going around Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick in Arrow. And he was able to circumvent SK and go to Congress. And there was a mechanism in place for him to do that. However, with the new legislation being proposed, everything will have to go through Arrow. So yeah, yeah, that's not good. That's not good. So that could mean that Congress is pretending to do something when in reality letting it go to Sean Kirkpatrick or whoever replaces him, if anybody does, to die. And, Sean Kirkpatrick, the lovely Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick, has said if he ever, first of all, there is no evidence of ETs, there's no evidence of craft defying the known laws of physics, nothing like that. But if he ever does find anything like that, he'll send it to NASA or somebody like NASA. That's where this stuff belongs, according to Dr. Sean Kirkpatrick. NASA, who has been hiding this stuff forever. So Congress is sending it to Sean. If Sean ever gets anything, presumably he'll send it to NASA, maybe. I mean, that's what he says he's going to do. God knows what he'll actually do. But yeah, so yeah, I don't have a whole lot of hope we're going to get anything from the government. Maybe. I think there are some sincere people like Tim Burchett trying to push this forward, and we are going to get David Grush testifying potentially publicly with cameras rolling on live TV in both the House and the Senate. So that may shame Congress, into doing something, may get the public more involved. I mean, all this Arrow began because of a grassroots movement sparked by Lou Elizondo, Chris Millen, and TTSA. Sorry, Stephen Greer, you had no part in that. So could another grassroots movement lead to, force Congress to do something more? I mean, the first grassroots movement forced Congress to create Arrow. So we'll see. I'm not real optimistic though, but there are a few positive signs, and there are seemingly some sincere actors in this. I really want people like Marco Rubio and Kristen Gillibrand to emerge as heroes and heroines of ufology and really push this forward and bring about some form of disclosure. But like I said, they've said on this for 2 years. So yeah, I'm not super. Yeah, and they probably never would have said anything if David Grush hadn't gone public. So about seeing any bodies, I'm not the super optimistic. But let me know what you think. Maybe you guys are more optimistic. If so, let me know. Maybe you can give me some optimism. I would love it. Let's see. UFO Arc says, I'm going to choose to keep coming back. Oh, yeah, as far as reincarnation goes. Yeah, okay. Lorenzo says, just joking. Great work, Jack. Oh, thank you. I didn't see the negative comment, so thank you. Appreciate that, Lorenzo. Jim says, the reincarnation stories about that kid that was a World War II fighter pilot and the other one that died in the 9/11 disaster are very intriguing. Yeah, absolutely. And there are some also very ironclad reincarnation stories in India. A little girl that, knew everything from her past life, where she lived in a village, and they took her to that village and she knew everybody and she knew everything, just like that little boy who was taken to the veterans get together. And, he was a fighter pilot in his former life and he knew everybody. I think he got a few details wrong, but pretty much he knew everything. So yeah, the reincarnation seems to be a thing, and that is what near-death experiencers report as well. I'm like I said, I'm consoled that it seems to be optional, but I'm not consoled that we do seem to choose to keep coming back. Why? Pizza, maybe. I like pizza. Maybe they don't have pizza on the fifth dimension. If not, that's an oversight. That's a major oversight. Lorenzo says, what do you think of the 2026 prophecy Chris Bledsoe Sr. was talking about? A new knowledge will be found, something to do with Egypt. Yeah, I love the Chris Bledsoe story. I'm a huge fan of the Chris Bledsoe story. Just one of my favorite stories, one of my favorite experiencers of all time. His interactions with the lady, his ability to heal. Just an incredible story. And that date that he was given, 2026, dovetails so well with that other information that I've already talked about. those apocalyptic modalities that all come between 2026 and 2032. So, and apocalyptic also means the beginning of a new world. So it doesn't mean the end of everything. Just to clarify that. So the ascension. We're living in the age of Aquarius. We're on the path to ascension. So I love that idea. I hope we are. I hope that's true. So many things seem to converge within that window of time. So like I said earlier, stay frosty and also stay hopeful. Stay hopeful that this is the age of Aquarius. This is the new age that is coming. We're all going to be new agers pretty soon, living in the new age potentially. So yeah, I hope so. I hope the lady is real. I believe in the lady. I have tried to call the lady and to hang out with the lady. So far, it hadn't happened. But maybe I don't want to. Maybe I don't want to, because when Chris met her, he was healed of some medical conditions that he had, which is wonderful. But he was also stricken with rheumatoid arthritis. And he is not the only person that this has happened to. People who have interacted with higher beings sometimes get stricken with rheumatoid arthritis. So be careful what you wish for. But obviously, I think overall, he's enormously glad that he had these experiences. And I think we're all glad that he's had these experiences. Terrific account. I can't wait to see what he does next. Chris says something big is coming with him revealing some of his videos this summer. It's summer, baby. Where's the videos? Pony up. I can't wait, man. Apparently, he's got some fantastic videos that the lady and the beings allowed him to start taking in 2019. And people who have seen these videos say they're just jaw dropping. And he says he's going to start releasing them in some format. I don't know what format. If you've talked to him, Lorenzo, recently, do you know what format he's talking about? Is he talking about, Sean Patrick Hazlett on Through the Glass Darkly? We were talking, he thought maybe it was on Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, the spinoff to The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. Is that going to be the format on which Chris Bledsoe releases this footage? Is it going to be a website? Is it going to be a documentary? Is James Fox or Jeremy Corbell right now over there shooting a documentary? Let me know your thoughts, or if you have any inside information, let me know. Hey, Lex, how's it going? Yeah, Lorenzo, Dolores Cannon, she's amazing. Her books are great. Her books directly led to my UFO encounter. Resonating with her vision of Jesus, and I say her vision, but it was, it was two books that she wrote about. She was just giving the testimony from people who were recounting their past lives where they knew Jesus. And the first book is told from one of his teachers, who had teachers in the Torah. His name was Sudi. And in the second book is told from these two other people who walked with Jesus. That's the name of the one person only met him once, and one person actually was a disciple of his, young female. And some amazing stories, and in that vision of Jesus that you get from reading those books, it's all tied up with Atlantis, and it's very mystical. There's reincarnation that's a part of it. There's aliens. The beings come to visit Jesus. It's just a really wonderful, awesome, cool, mystical version of Jesus, where he's fulfilling this Atlantean prophecy. And the Essenes that he came amongst and were taught by, primarily, he learned from other people. They were founded by survivors of Atlantis, and they believed the Atlanteans taught them this prophecy of the great teacher that was coming. Anyway, a really cool vision that I resonated very strongly with at an ayahuasca retreat, like so powerfully. It felt real. I thought Jesus was just going to step out of the air and give me a wave. It didn't happen, but I asked for, oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Who was that? Well, I don't want to lose where I am. I'm not seeing a name up there, but thank you so much for the super chat. So but yeah, so during this journey, this ceremony, I had this powerful resonance with Jesus, and I asked for a sign that this was a real event and not just because I was, tripping. And a month later, I was stone cold sober, driving down the road with my wife on the way back from a Renaissance festival, saw a UFO that made the sign of the cross in the sky. And I've gone into more detail on that in other videos. I made a dedicated video about my Jesus ayahuasca UFO. You can check that out on the channel. I thought it was so important I didn't even monetize it, and so I would not have had that experience without Dolores Cannon and her books. So yeah, I'm still trying to make sense of that event. Was it somebody telling me that that was the correct version of Jesus, or just in general that that's a good version that I should, because I was an atheist all my life until getting into UFOs and learning about this stuff. So yeah, anyway, but yeah, love Dolores. She's awesome. She was awesome. She's still awesome. She's still up there somewhere. You rock, Dolores. Jesse says, did you hear Ross Kohler said the TV show Dark Skies from 1996 might be based on true events? No, I didn't hear that. Dark Skies, is that where his friend Bryce, why am I spacing on his name? Remind me, did he work on that? But yeah, people are saying that some people think that the Steven Spielberg movie Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind is based on a real event, possibly the Eisenhower meeting. And there are other interesting stories as well about how the beings or the control group has influenced Hollywood to produce content to get across certain ideas, like in Star Trek, getting across the benevolent aliens and the prime directive and those kinds of ideas. And also the day the earth stood still, how the beings are here to help us, but we need to be better. And, which is a common narrative you get, a common refrain you get from contact experiences. So I can well believe that. And, that's interesting because that would suppose that the control group or whoever is pushing that idea has a positive motive, or at least is positioning us to think well of the phenomenon, which totally goes against what Greer is pushing. So interesting. Yeah, it was the Soylent Green. I hope not, Jim. I hope not. Could be. Lorenzo says, I really hope it will be like Star Trek. Yeah, exactly. I want to join the Federation. Amen, man. Amen, brother. Let's do it. I'll go warp speed and go have some adventures on other planets and heck, other dimensions. Lorenzo says, wow, where did you get that device? I love Lucifer Dreams. Oh, yeah, I got it. I'll show it to you. Talking about my soda device. I guess the company maybe called Soda. Okay. Breaking everything. All right, here we go. All right, I'll do that. I'm there. Okay. Here we go. I'm back. There's the device. You plug it in. Yeah, it's called the Soda Biotuner. Cost me a mint. But yeah, it's the Biotuner. You connect it to your ears. Put some gel. You put a little gel on the end of these guys, and you hook it up to your ears, and it's supposed to align the hemispheres of your brain so that you can have lucid dreams, and you could crank it up to any setting. There's got all these settings. So it's neat, and I did have some. I didn't have any lucid dreams, but I did have more vivid dreams doing it. I did. So it did have some benefit, and it was cool. I liked it. I should probably start doing it again, but I did it for 2 or 3 months every day before I went to bed, and I wasn't able to have a lucid dream. So, I'm looking for alternative methods to produce a lucid dream or an out-of-body experience. I would really, really like to have one. Whitley Strieber says he can't have one himself. He can't produce an out-of-body experience himself, but the beings come and they unzip his soul from his body. That's how he puts it. And the beings help him have an out-of-body experience. So I would love it if that happened. I would love it if the beings helped me do that. If they did it in a kind and gentle way, and if we went somewhere cool. I want to go to some hell dimension. Oh, UFO art. You had an out of body experience? Uh, your girlfriend wasn't impressed? I'm impressed. I want to hear about it. Gray Troll says, for me, it's really rare to have a lucid dream or an AP, and the experiencer are very lucid. Richard, okay, yeah, that's cool. Richard says, humans always want to know, and in order to know something, it must be perceived. Eyes are the windows we see our world from. Yeah, okay, I like that. PreDeath Lobby, that's an interesting name. Avoiding abduction involves letting the cosmos know that your body is off limits. Put that out there just to be safe. The non-humans won't be offended. Yeah, well, that's what you hear in a lot of contactee experiences, or researchers will say that you can tell them to stop. Now, some people have told them to stop very forcefully, repeatedly, and it doesn't stop. And sometimes it does. So I don't know why it works sometimes and why it doesn't work other times. I would love to know that. A lot of people say that we sign up for these things, before we're born. That's as a common thought. That is a common thing that experiencers will say. And yeah, I think that's even in near-death experiencers will say stuff like that. But really interesting. I would love to know the truth about that. Richard says expanded perception equals expanded world. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Jim, Roswell was just a damn weather balloon, right? Yeah, weather balloon. It was a mogul. It was a mogul balloon. That's right. It's really interesting that George Knapp reported the Hal O'Donnell story recently on Weaponized, and I forget the name of the company that Hal was with. It was one of those big private contractor companies. I think they're defunct now, but at one point they ran Area 51, and he was the director of Area 51. And over the period of a year or two, in various talks with George Knapp, one of my favorite reporters, he revealed that there was a live being at one point at Area 51. And of course, I think it goes far beyond that, but George was really impressed by this story. Later in his life, the men in black came to Hal O'Donnell, former director of Area 51, and forced him to recant that story. Forced him to tell people that he was wrong and it wasn't an alien running around. Oh, and by the way, that alien was one of the beings from Roswell, and that there was the crash, and then there were the bodies, right? So, and that being did not live forever. He ultimately passed. So the men in black came to Hal, and they said, "You can't tell that story. You have to say that the bodies were victims of Joseph Mengele, the evil German guy." Yeah. So when I come across, the German angle in World War II with the beings, I remember that. And that they have used the Germans in World War II as disinfo before. And they have compelled people to spread that disinfo. So what does that mean? How many of those stories about the Germans in World War II are BS? How many of those are legit? I don't know. I think that the Germans did have some interaction with the phenomenon, and they got some stuff. They got some technology. They got some know-how, something. I do believe that that's what the evidence shows, but the rest of it, I don't know. I would love to learn what happened to that lady. What's her name? The leader of the Vril Society, and she disappeared after World War II. Like 1945, she vanished, and apparently the story is she went to be with her people on another world. What's her name again? I forget it off the cuff. Anyway, great story. But yeah, I don't know what to believe about the German stuff. But I think that it is really interesting that the men in black, are using the German thing as disinfo. So, UFO Arc says Whitley Strieber had his soul examined, or is that? Oh man, I lost it. Where'd it go? Ah, shoot, I lost it. It vanished. But Jim says that's what Betty Hill claims. The alien spoke in at least. Okay, there's Lauren. There's Lauren. I'm finally seeing your message. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You're awesome. You keep me up to date on a daily basis. Well, thank you so much, Laura. I try. I try. And that was Laura Greeno. Greeno. Am I saying that right? Anyway, but thank you so much. Lorenzo says, that's awesome, Jackie. I'm so glad you had an experience after reading Dolores Cannon. Yeah, Jesus is real, reincarnation is real. Love, love, love. Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. Lorenzo says, I have tried to talk to the lady as well. I did see orbs and UFOs after reading his book. Cool. I've never seen an orb. I've always wanted to see an orb. I think an orb would be cool, but not one of those blue orbs that give you cancer. That's what Jim Simivan and others have talked about. But the cool mystical orbs, I really want to see one of those. I've talked, Tristan, yes, yeah, I've done a video on Chris Bledsoe. I've talked about Chris Bledsoe a lot. I love the Chris Bledsoe story. Someday I hope to interview him. He's actually done interviews with channels that are smaller than mine, so I guess that's possible. I don't really typically do interviews, but I would like to start doing that. Space Alpha says, didn't they say they won't fund Arrow anymore, even though they did merge with NASA? So many inconsistencies with all that. Yeah, I'm not familiar with not funding Arrow. I think you may be thinking of them saying they're going to defund the special access programs if they don't pony up with the UFO reverse engineering projects. If there are these secret projects that have been kept illegally from Congress, they are going to defund them. At least that's the plan. We'll see if that comes to pass and if that compels anybody to come forward. So, I mean, that's a really encouraging step that they would do. So, I am encouraged that Congress would take that step. But yeah, I think that may be what you're thinking of. But correct me if I'm wrong. Chumble's artificial intelligence alone would be earth-shattering, but AI and disclosure at the same time. Yeah. Well, Lou Elizondo referred us to a book. And by us, I mean the UFO community. He says, to get a grasp on what's going on, it might be helpful to read this book. I forget his exact words, and I forget the name of the book. But if you remember it, please put it in the chat. But it was about the interaction between AI and the beings. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, so that's a good point. I think that may be very relevant. And it's interesting that AI is coming along to fruition right when we're having all this disclosure stuff. Could be related. Is that related to any of the apocalyptic modalities that I've talked about? They're coming up in a few years. No. Alex says, what do you think about Graham Hancock's experience on ayahuasca with a man stealing his and his wife's energy? And the same guy could get into their head without drinking any himself. Okay, so some people don't like me to talk about drugs. And, just for the sake of YouTube, I'm not promoting any drug use. However, now let me tell you about my healing on ayahuasca and my wonderful Jesus ayahuasca UFO. Shamanism is real. The shamanistic magic and abilities, whatever that is real. And, humans can do bad things, even if they're tapped into magical stuff. And there are some bad shamans that do some bad stuff. And some people get really scared off by that. And wisely so. Don't go to those guys. Do not go to those guys. Those guys should be outed. They should be known. There needs to be a list, where you can look up bad shamans and a list where you can look up good shamans. I think that would be enormously helpful. And if there is such a list, please clue me in. I got really lucky with the guys that I have been sitting with. Really good, really great, really powerful, just wonderful guys. Wonderful work that they do. I don't understand what they do. Energy work, working with the forces. I don't understand it. I have experienced it, and it has changed my life in an amazing way. I mean, a physical way. They healed a birth defect that I had. And I've talked about that. You can go check that out on the playlist, my experiences. And yeah, and it led to my UFO and lots of insights and other stuff that has changed my life. Because I allows you to go to deep places and work on stuff that you didn't even know you needed to work on. And it's just truly amazing, truly amazing. But there are dark people out there, or there are people that will use these energies and this power or whatever for their own negative ends. Absolutely exists. Just like with the beings, there's good actors and there's bad actors. There might be some evil, reptilians or whatever stealing loose from people, but then there's other beings teaching people how to heal and read auras and etc. So yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. And I point well taken. And so, yes, I believe Hancock's story, and that is very alarming, and he is not alone. Peter says, do you believe anything what Stephen Greer is saying? I believe in the witnesses that he has brought forward. And I really appreciate him popularizing CE5. Yeah, see, I just lost some subscribers or some viewers talking about ayahuasca, but man, it's powerful stuff. Powerful stuff. Priestess of Fun says, "Is there a way to get the aliens' attention? I don't know if I've ever been abducted, but I want to be." CE5 will get their attention. I don't know if I encourage anybody to be abducted, but they, the positive experiences are very positive. Although sometimes you have to suffer to get there. David says Greer spreads lies, half lies, and a small amount of truth. Yeah, that sounds about right. Not as bad as he that shall not be named, but getting close. Who is he? Who is he that shall not be named? Is that Richard Doty? Who else was a big purveyor of disinfo? Great Troll, Priestess of Fun, go to a place with lots of cases, do CE5, invite experiencers. Yeah, absolutely. It would be a good thing to do. Do CE5. I've been to 2 Skywatches I've been to 3 Skywatches, but 2 where we did CE5 and where I ostensibly led the CE5, session. Although I invited my Reiki instructor there to kick it off. And she's the one that invited the beings of the positive vibration down. She got our energy going in a circle and a spiral and sent it up and made this connection. And people were having these amazing, fantastic experiences. And the first session, people were actually interacting with the Reiki beings. Reiki is a hands-on healing modality interacting with this chi, the sacred energy that is all over the universe, and you can channel it from outside. And you can be taught. Everybody can do it naturally. You don't need to learn Reiki to do it, but Reiki, learning it helps. Learning to use the symbols helps. Being attuned to the symbols helps, and the beings and the energy. But there are higher dimensional beings, call them aliens, call them whatever you want, that exist and that help people use this energy. And we call them the Reiki beings or the healers or the doctors or whatever. There seem to be different types, different races, at least 2 different types. During that first Skywatch, multiple people were interacting with the Reiki beings. They were having these like out of body experiences with their eyes closed. They had never heard of Reiki. They didn't know what Reiki was. They weren't New Age guys. Most of them were like more nuts and bolts kind of guys. And like half a dozen of them had these experiences. And like dancing with these energy beings, like half out of their body. Just amazing, amazing. But that's because I didn't have any experience, even though I'm a Reiki master now and was studying Reiki at the time, didn't have any of that. But multiple people did independently. They didn't know each other's stories, but they corroborated each other's stories separately, coming to me, telling me their individual accounts. And it was when I compiled all their reports, I was like, my God, they're all the same. They all were experiencing these energy beings. And then I talked to my Reiki instructor about it, and she said, "Oh yeah, I know what they were doing," and they were talking to her about it too. And she said, "Oh yeah, those were the Reiki beings. I deal with them all the time." So that's why it's helpful on a CE5 to have some person that can interact with the beings and the energy is there, because there are people that can do that. And you want somebody that's a high vibrating person that can do that. You don't want one of these evil shamans that are stealing your energy. But if you can find a high vibrating person that can interact with the energies and the beings, I would encourage you to invite them to your CE5 and maybe even allow them to kick it off. That's what I did, and it worked. And the second time, we also had really cool interactions. We didn't have the Reiki beings show up, but we did have UFOs and other beings, and nothing negative. Let's see. Oh, and by the way, if you're just joining me, this is Jack with Cosmic Road talking about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. Thank you so much, Laura, for your very generous super chat. And if anybody else wants to support Cosmic Road in these live streams by leaving a super chat, that would be super appreciated. It keeps me motivated to keep on doing these, and I really appreciate it. You can also PayPal me below. And for those of you that have been PayPaling me, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. There's a link to that below. And I'm a science fiction fantasy writer. You can always go buy my books to have a good time if you like that sort of book, and to, of course, support the channel. Let's see. Yeah. David says, I've done a lot with binaural beats. Yes. And hemisync meditation with headphones coupled with certain substances. Yes. I have noticed a benefit from substances. I would love to be able to do all this sober. And I've had some fantastic experiences sober. I have. But I have had some amazing experiences with some help. And that seems to that seems to aid and assist. That does. But I am not encouraging any drug use. Don't do drugs. But let me tell you about these awesome experiences. David says prana or chi is very real and is a very important facet of energy. Yes, energy work. Yes, it is. Chi is very real. You know, I'm a Star Wars nerd. Love Star Wars all my life. I would ask my mom if the Force was real, and she would say, yeah, it's real if you believe it's real. She said the same thing about Santa. Santa will believe in you if you will believe in Santa. Okay. Thank you. You know, you know, what do you give me? So when I finally discovered Reiki and energy work and felt the energy, you know, the Force in Star Wars, of course, is patterned after chi or prana. And discovering that it was real was amazing. It was wonderful. Yeah, I mean, being able to feel the energy, whoa, and being able to tap into it, it's just incredible. I love it. So glad I found this world and this community. David says a great way to show up Greer would be to write a book with the free energy inventions over the last 50 years or so and include the Google patent number and who purchased the patent. Yeah, the free energy stuff, man. That's, you know, not, my mind doesn't go to Greer. My mind goes to the control group and them hiding this information from us and concealing the truth of the phenomenon and this technology from us, because they've got the tech. They've been flying around in their own UFOs since the 50s or the 60s. They've been dealing with the beings. They have access to fantastic technology, and they've been hoarding it. Now, the Army, interestingly, did not hoard it. They actually farmed it out to companies, tech companies, per the book The Day After Roswell by Philip J. Corso. And that technology, that reverse engineering the material from Roswell and other crashes, what little of it the Army seemed to have, the bulk of it seemed to be with the Air Force. But that little bit of technology that they were able to farm out transformed our world, according to Philip J. Corso. You know, it led to our modern computer age and various other advances, but most notably our modern computer age, all derived from that. So just imagine if we had access to the hoarded material and technology that the control group has access to. Free energy, all that stuff. I mean, I can make an argument that they're keeping it from us for a reason, that if we had access to unlimited energy, that would be like everybody having access to a nuclear weapon. And, maybe that'd be bad. I don't know. I don't know. But I imagine the world being transformed with unlimited energy, and how much better that would be for the planet to have an endless source of clean energy. So if the beings are working with the control group as they seem to be, and if the beings are pushing an agenda that is pro environment and pro earth, as countless experiencer reports say they are, many abductions, of course, but also sitting down in schoolyards all over the world, not just in one case. People will think of the one case, but all over the world, and communicating messages of, basically environmentalist messages to the children, saying we're doing harm to the planet, and, we need to be better to the planet. And that is what they have told countless people as well. So I'm not sure if those are the beings that are interacting with the control group, because you would think that those beings would want us to have access to this technology. On the other hand, they've got that tech too. So why not give it to us, right? You better for the earth. They would serve their agenda if they really wanted that. Priestess of Fun, have you ever tried automatic writing? I've asked other people, but most of them have never heard of it. I've heard of it, and I've had people recommend it to me, and I've had people who have, had some really good results with it, but I've never tried it. Have you tried it? Have any of you guys tried it? Let me know in the comments below, or in the chat. Chumble says the only part of your UFO Jesus story is that you want to you don't believe I went to the Renaissance Festival sober? Well, I had to drive back for an hour. It was an hour away. Also, I'm gluten intolerant, so I can't drink beer. And that's all they had. Well, they may have had wine. I say that. But mainly it was because I was the designated driver. If it had been closer to home, I probably would have been tilting back a horn of wine or whatever they had. But mainly all I saw was beer. I'm sure they had some wine somewhere, but I pretty much just saw a whole bunch of different sorts of beer. But yeah, love it. We have a great Renaissance Festival locally. Really cool. Midway between here and Houston. Anyway, it's been going on for about 2 hours, guys. I think I'm probably about ready to wrap it up. Do y'all guys have any last topics or anything that y'all would like to discuss before I let you guys go? Let me know in the comments below. I could go over a couple of discussions that I had on the channel, comments that people had that I responded to, and I thought some of them were going worth going over. Let me just, I'm not going to read the names of the people that are asking these questions. But if you're in the chat, feel free to chime in, but I'm not trying to out anybody, but I do think that there's some good questions. You guys always have the best questions for me, and it makes me think. And one person asked, Jack, I've been enjoying your common sense commentaries. Thank you. But is there any evidence that members of the U.S. military or intelligence are working with non-human intelligence? At this sensitive limbo point between lies and truth, can you please emphasize what are rumors versus documented truth? Well, okay, if you want documented truth, like, a piece of paper or photo, that's going to be more difficult. It depends on if you are willing to accept, high-level witnesses and, experiencers. So my response was, good questions. As far as evidence, there are some pretty high-level people, including a former director of Area 51, Hal O'Donnell, an engineer at Area 51, is that Bill Udoff, and a different Lockheed Martin Skunkworks engineer, I forget his name, who all say, these are people that had direct access to this stuff, and some of them were interacting directly, who all say that, yep, there were live beings there. The second two talk about how the beings were working with us, humans, the control group, to develop technology and enable us to fly our own UFO-like devices. And then there are the various witnesses who have seen military people coming out of UFOs. There's many of those, as well as the many abductees who have seen government and military types working with the beings during abductions. Humans, just military guys and government officials, helping carry out abductions. So, yes, quite a bit of evidence pointing to the control group working with the beings, and at the same time shooting at UFOs, presumably belonging to a different group than the one that we're working with, suggesting some sort of non-human conflict that we've been caught in the middle of. And that's kind of where I think we are. But I would love to get your thoughts on that. And let's see, what else? Talking about Werner von Braun and his mentor. Yeah, we were talking about the German connection earlier in World War II to the beings, and how von Braun's mentor, Hermann Oberth, said, "We cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped, and we have been helped by the people of other worlds." And yes, I do believe they got some tech and some know-how from the beings. There's different versions of that story. There's several different versions. Some of them are pretty fantastic. Some of them are more basic. I don't know which one is true, but yeah, I do think there was some stuff going on there. Yeah, let's see. What other comments? Yeah, another one. Another question is, what's the factual foundation that the U.S. military is faking abductions and cattle mutilations? Well, my response is there's zero evidence that the control group stages mutilations. And I would add the caveat that at least at one occasion, there was a needle found beneath a cow that was mutilated. Now, I think that was likely planted to make it look like there was a human involvement, but you never know. You never know. However, like I say, this has been going on since the 1600s. There's never been a single arrest or witness. The only thing that anybody has ever witnessed is UFO activity in conjunction with these mutilations. So unlikely to be a human of human origin. Anyway, but yeah, that's I guess I'll let you guys go unless y'all have any additional comments. What are you guys thinking? Okay, Priestess of Fun says, I do automatic writing all the time. It works for me, but seems to not work for everyone. It's like your spirit guide or ghost or spirit of any kind takes control of your hand. That's fascinating. That is fascinating. It sounds scary, but it's not. No, I really do want to try that. I guess the idea is you let your higher self take over and you just write. Yeah, I think that's really cool. David says, I think you were talking about Maria Orsic. Yes, I was. Really beautiful and very intriguing woman. Yeah, I would love to know. What did become of her after World War II? Did she go to that planet? I forget which planet and which being she was said to interact with. But, I guess the Nordics of some variety. Maybe she'll come back. Some people think that she is an immortal or a long-lived alien being and that someday she will return. Let's see. Chumble says Anunnaki with purses. They're the purses. Those little bags they carry. And not just the Anunnaki, but other beings as well, as depicted by various mythologies around the world. Very intriguing. What are they? Chumbles, that's a great question. There have been various theories about that it symbolizes something, or that they actually carried something in that purse that was important. I would love to know. If you can figure it out or direct me to somebody that has, let me know. Raz says, in the laws of nature, there's no such thing as perfect benevolence. Benevolence. Yeah, I mean, there's, it takes all kinds, right? It takes all kinds. I received a download or a message. I received a few messages while in a meditative state. And one of those messages was the universe is a frequency. It must vibrate to exist. Meaning, as I interpreted, as I think I was meant to interpret it, is that, yin and yang, good and bad, that's the frequency, right? It all must be possible in order for any of it to be possible. So the idea, because my question to the universe when I received that was, how can I love the universe and have faith in the goodness of things when there's all this bad stuff going on? And that was the message that I got, was it must all be possible in order for any of it to be possible, because the universe must vibrate to exist. So, so at least in our reality, it's hard to have such a thing as a perfect benevolence. Maybe on a higher reality, a higher density or dimension, such a thing is possible. I sincerely hope so. Anne says, if you'd like to share, I'd love to hear how your life led you to here. Me? Well, I've talked about my story numerous times. I was an atheist and a skeptic on UFOs forever. Didn't believe in any of this. Just very, that's one of the reasons I write fantasy and science fiction, because I felt like I had to bring the fantastic into the world, because we did not live in a fantastic world. But yeah, a total atheist skeptic. And, 2017 happened. Lou Elizondo, TTSA, Chris Mellon got that information out there, led me to one deep dive after another on UFOs and everything else related to it. And, because I am a novelist and I don't have a day job and I have an obsessive personality, I was able to devote quite a lot of time into studying this and all, every related phenomena that I could find. And, that quickly led me to the metaphysical, because that's where it goes. 1/3 of all alien abductions are of near-death experiencers, people who have died, been to the other side, and come back. And there are so many other confluences between the metaphysical and the spiritual and the alien as well. So once I got to that point, it led me on different avenues of research and eventually experience. And, sometimes if you seek this stuff out, you will find it. So yeah, seek good stuff out, guys. See good stuff out. But that's a great question, and that's my shortest possible answer. Long-time listeners are probably tired of hearing me tell my story. David says, I always thought the Aleister Crowley, Jack Parsons, L. Ron Hubbard connection was really weird. Yeah. No, it is. In Xenu. Yeah, I know, right? So L. Ron Hubbard, and Jack Parsons, actual disciples of Aleister Crowley, carrying out rituals that may have actually been real rituals, with real effects. One of these was right before the Kenneth Arnold sighting, our first UFO in modern culture, where the word flying saucer comes from. And, so if L. Ron Hubbard was into some stuff, like some real stuff, not some nonsense, is there any truth at all to Scientology? I don't think so, because he's also said, wouldn't it be funny if you could start a cult for some money, or whatever he said. It'd be easy to con some people out of some money with the cult. So, but at the same time, he may have been plugged into some real stuff. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. I'm not going to go into Scientology. I'm not into that. But I used to think it was really, really stupid. Now I think it's probably stupid, but I don't know. Do you remember doing this in another life? I don't remember any other lives. I have had, some psychics and people read past lives of mine. And some people are able to tell me what they see. And one person actually told me that that was not real. that I was putting on because he was able to peer into the real me while in a session and connective session. It's supposed to connect to my higher self, and he was saying that according to him, I at first I was presenting false faces to him. I was just on the table hanging out, but my higher self was trying to disguise itself from him, and he had to tear that one away, and then tear away the next layer, and finally he was able to see the real me, according to him, which was a blue being, There was a fifth dimensional being of a race that he had never seen before, and I was here to participate in this shift that is happening. Whether possibly to advance it in some way or to help in some way, or I don't. Maybe I'm just supposed to be a witness. I don't know. He didn't know, but he knew I was here for that. Or that was his thought. That was his thought, and that was after I'd already started the channel. So it made me wonder, right? Maybe that was on the level. I don't know. I take all of that with a grain of salt. But he was for real. I mean, he had real abilities because I couldn't. Yeah, I'm not going to go into it, but had physical effects on me. Yeah. So, but that doesn't mean what he saw was legit. But I asked him, does that mean I'm a starseed? And he says, well, I don't like that word. I don't use that word. So no, I wouldn't say starseed. But what he's saying corresponds to that. But I don't identify as that. And he did not identify me as that. So yeah, that's anyway. Sorry to end on such a woo-woo note. I know many people really hate that. Sorry about that, but I love to talk about what I've experienced and what I know. And there's a lot of people that don't like to associate UFOs with the metaphysical. But it is my experience that the UFO phenomenon is a subset of a much larger phenomenon that I call the greater phenomenon. And I am an experiencer of the greater phenomenon. I've had some really wonderful, amazing experiences over the last few years. Like I say, as you seek it out, sometimes it'll meet you halfway. And that has been my experience. And I've had some fantastic experiences. And I have also had a couple of UFO experiences. And that may or may not have been with Nuts and Bolts Craft. I think one of them was Nuts and Bolts. The other one, the Jesus UFO, I don't know about that one. Yeah, embrace the woo, David says. The woo is your friend, mostly. Yeah. Except for those bad shamans. Yeah, but the woo is your friend. I love the woo. Thank God for the woo. I mean, yeah, really love it. Yeah, thank you, Ann. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah. I love talking about it. I know people are clicking the button to get me off this channel every time I mention it, but I think it is important to talk about. I do. I probably have a lot more subscribers if I didn't talk about it, but I think it's important to talk about. I think that people should know. And the people who have had direct experience, I don't want to say it's our duty because I don't want to tell anybody what to do, but I feel like it's incumbent upon me to share some of my experiences and information with people and let them know that this is real and that it's all part of one big picture. And there's so much good in it. So I love it. My life has changed because of it, mentally and physically and spiritually. Raz says a non-human coming from another dimension could not be defined in human terms. Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that's correct. I'm not claiming anything. But I thought that was really interesting. And since Ann asked me about that, I thought I'd share that with you. Yeah, what if it is our duty? Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's my duty. I don't want to tell anybody else that your duty is to do something, but but yeah, I do feel it's incumbent upon me to talk about this and to share that. DJ Tom Hanks says, I'm new to the woo. Where did you go to make sense of it all? Okay, well, all right, yeah, good question. Good question. Let me answer that and then I'll let you guys go. So I discovered it through my research into Skinwalker Ranch, into UFOs, led me to Skinwalker Ranch. I started, I encountered the paranormal there, or, researching it, began researching the paranormal, found to my shock, because I was an atheist, a lot of evidence for the existence of the paranormal and the spiritual. And I was, so persuaded, by the body of evidence that this was real that I started ghost hunting. I co-founded a ghost hunting group and began ghost hunting. At the time, I thought that these experiences that people were having were probably artifacts of alien technology, because again, I was an atheist. I was like, okay, well, there's beings from another dimension. At the time, I had a very mundane, or I should say, non-spiritual definition of other dimensions. So, I thought all this could be explained by alien science or alien technology. And, it wasn't really spiritual. It was actually technological. But then I began having my own experiences. And one of my ghost hunting buddies, Elizabeth, does Reiki. She was a Reiki master. And I allowed her to do Reiki on me. I felt the energy. An atheist, I'd heard some noises and some spooky stuff and seen some stuff ghost hunting, but I actually felt this energy, the spiritual energy, this chi, this prana, the force. And I knew I had to learn this. I had to get in touch with this energy. And so I began learning Reiki. I took a year-long course, and then there was an extra year. And although it wasn't a full year, but anyway, it was we had class every week for 3.5 hours. Really great group of guys, made some good friends doing that. And so I learned to channel this energy. And by the way, we can all do it. You don't need to learn Reiki to do it. We're all born with this natural ability. But getting these attunements and learning these techniques and practice will help you. And and I was doing other research and continuing ghost hunting. And as I was doing all this, I began to have these experiences, my own experiences, not related to ghost hunting or anything. And just Kundalini awakening, messages from the other side, having an apport, spirit give me something. My beloved stepmother gave me this, manifested it, and there's a whole long story about that. I'm not going to get into that now. But my dad, my late father, came to visit me in a dream, but it was not a dream. And various other wonderful experiences. The Kundalini awakening was insane. And the healing I experienced on ayahuasca, physical healing of a lifelong condition, a birth defect. Just some. It's a long list of really cool stuff. A ghost cat. I've got a ghost cat now that says hello every now and then, and I've seen him a couple times. Usually, I just feel him, and yeah. Anyway, a wide range of experiences that I've been really blessed to have over the last few years, and and it's still ongoing today. I think that if I meditated more and did more stuff, that I could probably bring it on more. And I really need to do that because I want to get in touch with that stuff even more. I'm really jealous of these high level experiencers that are able to go out of body and have out of body experiences or meet goddesses, like Chris Bledsoe. But yeah, baby steps. So yeah, that's my story as quick as I can make it. And but as a lifelong atheist, and then coming to experience this, I realized how many people are still going through life the way that I was, and thinking that the end is nothing but oblivion, and looking at the UFO phenomenon with nothing but fear, and that's not the case. So So I do think that it's my duty to share that with you, and that's why this is important. That's why the woo is so important to all of this. But yeah, no problem, man. Thank you for asking. I mean, a lot of, I kind of hesitate to talk about it, but at the same time, like I just said, I'm supposed to talk about it. So thank you for prompting me. I appreciate that. DJ Tom Hanks just says, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Whenever I poke around with stuff, I feel something. Yeah. As you seek it out, it'll find you or meet you halfway. So, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Let's see. David, that's why I love your channel, Jack. The latest news of the phenomenon with just the right amount of woo mixed in. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. I love our current age of UFO disclosure. Man, I hope Congress is sincere in wanting to push this forward to bring it back to a slightly more nuts and bolts point. But yeah, I love it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to let you go, guys, but I really appreciate y'all joining me, and I will see y'all again soon. This has been Jack with some great group of guys with Cosmic Road talking about UFOs and paranormal. Please hit like, please subscribe, share on social media. Let me know your own stories. I would love to hear them. There's plenty of other videos on the channel to check out. And yeah, thank you guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys next time.